Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you. It has been a day, and like always around here, when you're busy, right? And I'm really appreciate all of you who take the time to listen, to watch, to like, to share, to do all the things just because it makes it easier for people to find us. Doesn't help us financially at all. That comes from buying the books. By the way, the books are available at authorjerrymitchell.com. If you want to go there, GiveGod90.com for everything else. So that's all out there for your perusal. Back to me. Yeah, there we go. Something to talk about today that is going to be fun. And the examples I included are going to be fun too. Let's just put it that way, okay? Yeah. Just about every week. And if you're watching the video and you see me looking off, that's where my notes are. So I still haven't got a way yet figured out that I can keep looking at the camera like I'm supposed to, but you know what? You get what you pay for, and this is free. So there you go. Just about every week, I have a chance to speak with somebody who says, how did you come to that conclusion? How did you come up with that? How'd you figure that out? And I welcome those questions. I really do. It gives me the chance to show and explain to others how passages, not just verses in the Bible, will cross-reference each other very, very well. And I call that supporting evidence. Okay? More on that as we go along. Every so often, though, somebody will say, well, that's not what I think. Okay, you don't have to think what I think. That's fine, right? And I welcome that response as well. It gives me a chance to say, well, you teach me. Why do you think what you think? And I hope when I say that I don't get the answers that I get so often. And you can imagine, right? Well, my pastor said, or my grandmother taught me. Now, it's really hard to refute someone's grandmother, okay? You kind of got to take that as it comes and deal with a person one-on-one. Now, a lot of times when I get those answers, like, well, you know what? Show me in the Bible what supports your conclusion, what supports the way you think. Rarely is somebody able to do that. I should say it that way. And that's when I take this as a teachable moment, right? And I explain things to them, and I go back to Deuteronomy 19:15. A lone witness is not sufficient to establish any wrongdoing or sin against a man, regardless of what offense he might have committed. A matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If we apply that same principle to studying the Bible, studying what is written, it puts it back into context. And when we have context, we have everything. That's why I look at the language, I look at the culture, I look at the history, I look at these cross-references, supporting evidence, all of these things. But to use a single verse to build a doctrine is dangerous. And it's dangerous because we're going to miss something far more important than we might realize, right? I'll give you a for instance. Okay, there's a good old Sussex County, Delaware term, a for instance. Myra's mother, like a lot of people, abstained from drinking alcohol, right? And it's probably a good idea for most people anyway. The problem is she tried to hide behind a single verse in the Bible, and that's what she based her doctrine on. That's what she based that particular doctrine on. And of course, I'm speaking about Leviticus 10:9. Do not drink wine or intoxicating drink, you nor your sons with you, when you go into the tabernacle of meeting, lest you die. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations. And I kind of got that through one of the King James translations. That was Myra's mother's go-to Bible, the King James, because Jesus carried the King James Bible on his way to Sunday school. You think I'm kidding. I'm not. The problem using that verse for this is it was specifically for the Levite priests who were going to go into the temple to serve their duty, right? They had jobs to do in the tabernacle at first and later carried over into the temple. But it was specifically for the Levite priest. You see, there's no supporting passages to support abstaining from alcohol. And don't get the wrong idea. Do not get the wrong idea. I'm not advocating for anything here. I'm simply pointing out, if you choose to abstain, it's your prerogative, right? Yeah, that is completely and totally up to you. But you should not attempt to use the Bible as a weapon, or, that you're going to force your opinion, your agenda on others, and you can't use it as a shield either, because you can't use it as a shield if there's nothing in it to support your position. It's just not there. Now, you certainly are entitled to an opinion. You're entitled to your position. But if your position is not supported by the Bible, you're on your own. You are on your own. Make a stand for yourself if that's what you want to do. But that's up to you, right? That is completely and totally up to you. I know people who try to use the Bible to force their beliefs on others for various things, right? The problem is, too often they use it out of context. You might have a good idea, and what you're trying to accomplish may be there, but you're taking things out of context. Remember Jerry Falwell? I think he's the one who coined the phrase marriage is between one man and one woman. Well, in Genesis, before sin entered the world, that was the ideal family unit. But we no longer live in that ideal world. We don't live in that perfect world anymore. Later in the same Bible, you're going to read if a woman is widowed and she has no children, there's the thing. She has to be widowed. She can't have any children. Then somebody, even if they're married, they need to step up, enter into a marriage covenant with that person to care for her needs. That was guaranteed way that the widows would be cared for. And like most other things in the Bible, mankind has corrupted that to a large degree. So, yeah, he was correct. The Bible does describe marriage that way before the fall of mankind. But there's no further supporting evidence for that position. It's just not there. Now, I'm going to throw something in here. It might upset you, so be careful. There is no supporting evidence for homosexual marriage anywhere in the Bible, but that's another lesson for another time. If we try to use a single verse, and that verse is used out of context, we become foolish. Don't believe me? Remember Solomon? Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 28:26, he clarifies this. He who trusts in himself is a fool, but the one who walks in wisdom will be safe. So there you have it. It's foolish to guess at what the Bible is trying to teach us. It's foolish to guess at what the Bible is trying to teach us. You have got to have the passages that witness in favor of each other or that oppose the same thing. When you have more than one verse, more than one passage, and hopefully many more than that, 2 or 3, hopefully, and sometimes there's a lot more, then you can begin to build sound doctrine, and that sound doctrine is going to reflect the Bible, not conflict with it. Many of you know, if you're a regular listener, you know that Myers' father was a pastor. And sometimes he would say things, and I would say, well, where's that in the Bible? Can you show it to me? Can you show me where that is? And he hated that question because he knew what was coming next. Where's the verses that support this? Where's something that supports your position here, right? Where's your supporting evidence? A lot of Christians get caught up in their denominational doctrine or the traditions of man, and they overlook or just flat out disregard what is actually in the Bible. And I stand against that just about every time I speak with somebody who thinks they know the Bible, but they've not taken the time to look for themselves, right? Or they'll stand on one verse, and when I point out to them, well, that's not what that means, and I use the whole passage and many other supporting verses, I'll go back to the language, I'll do all kinds of things, give them probably far more information than they even wanted, when they started. It's kind of like you ask somebody what time it is and they tell you how to build a watch. Yeah, that's with some people, I will do that because that's how you have to do it. There's a lot of traditions among the various worship communities that really have no place being practiced among those who claim the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There is a lot of doctrines out there among the worship communities that have no foundational support whatsoever in the Bible. So what do we do? What are we supposed to do? Gee, I'm glad you asked. Don't simply trust your pastor. Don't simply trust your grandmother. And I know she was a wonderful person. And she meant the best. Absolutely. She would never do anything to hurt you, right? But do we just take them at their word, take them at face value? They're people. People can be wrong. I can be wrong. I was wrong once or twice. Twice. Twice I was really, really wrong. But that's for another time too. You look for yourself. You go dig. There's a tremendous amount of reference material out there today, right? And most of it's free to use. We don't live at a time where we have to go to the library and search through hundreds and hundreds of pages in books to find the answers anymore. Most people have what they need right in their hand right now, and it's available to you. Most of these things are available. They're free. There's some things that you might, have to pay for if you want to, depending on what you're looking for. But this stuff's out there. So the next time you have a question, right? Next time you see something on social media, is that really right? It doesn't sound right. Don't just wonder, right? Stop scrolling, search for the answer. You might be surprised what you find, right? Just be careful, okay? Not everything on the internet is true. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. Just because it's in the news doesn't mean it's factual either. And just because somebody said it, it doesn't make it real, unless it's God himself. If God says it, it's real. Trust me, okay? If God says it himself, it's real. Look for the verse that's being referenced. That's a good place to start. Look up the verse, read it, and say, is that really what that says? And then look for the supporting evidence. Look for the supporting evidence. Let me say that again. Look for the supporting evidence. If you see something and that somebody's telling you that this verse points in one direction, look for the supporting evidence. It's important to look for the supporting evidence. It's either in the cross references, right? Sometimes you have to cross-reference a verse for verse. Sometimes you have to cross-reference passage for passage. Sometimes you have to dig a little deeper. Sometimes you actually have to go into the language and do the word search and figure out what's really being said. But if you have the questions, take the time to find the answers. I did, and I'm absolutely no different than any of you. If I can do it, you can do it. It's possible. You have what it takes to do it. If you have the questions, I can guarantee you, if you search, you will find the answer. Might not be the answer you're looking for, but you will find the answer. That is just something to think about until next time. And I want to remind you that our granddaughter will be here. So next time might not be Thursday. It might be a little later than that. If you miss me on the social medias that I post on, either in MeWe or the Torah Network, might want to make sure you go there. I will be back, I promise. Something else. If you really wanted to take the time, there was a fellow, and his name just left my mind. Oh, that's terrible. Anyway, Messianic Delaware from week before last Friday. Check that out. He was in Israel during the bombing, so hear his story. It's very, very, very good. Very worthwhile. Take the time. You'll be glad you did. So until next time, many, many blessings, everyone.